Watch and burn.
Hey everybody. So tonight I am looking to discuss, I believe the 2002, I think it's 2002, the 2002 documentary, that is Bowling for Columbine. This is Michael Moore's sort of breakout film. I know that he'd done a documentary before that. I can't remember what it was. It's about like working in America or some shit. I can't remember what it was. He was supposed to meet with somebody or something. It doesn't matter. I love this documentary, but I don't love Michael Moore. I found that throughout the course of this, he sort of has this holier than thou attitude. Like at that one point when he's discussing that one kid where he's at that little like arcade pool hall, and the guy's talking about how he'd be able to like take a gun that he had and sell it somewhere else for more money and that. And then he said, but it's not really worth it now because if I get caught and, you know, I'll do some time. And then Michael Moore's like, yeah, you'll do time. Yeah, like trying to imply that Michael Moore is so clearly the socially superior person in the conversation because he's not selling firearms. And it just kind of, that attitude permeates this entire film. Like he gets that one guy to start crying when he's discussing Columbine, when the guy is discussing the different types of doors that a person could install in their home in order to stop the intruder. Because this film, although it is wrapped around the Columbine massacre that happened on April 20th, 1999, this movie digs a lot deeper and talks about how like paranoid Americans are and how like gun happy Americans are and how people that scared and that paranoid shouldn't be that well armed because inevitably tragedy after tragedy like Columbine, they're just not going to stop. The fuck was that? Doesn't matter. But yeah, I mean, first off, too, the other thing, third off, fifth, fourth off, Manson, by way of Marilyn, like he stole the movie completely. When Michael Moore meets up with him, and of course Michael Moore would meet up with Marilyn Manson in regards to what happened in Columbine because Manson was held directly responsible for the Columbine massacre because according to what was left of the religious right, he promotes Columbine-like behavior. That's even quoted in the movie. One of the religious right people, so like protesting outside of one of Manson's shows, says that like, you know, if you're going to promote, you know, Satanism and sin and Columbine-like behavior, which of course anybody who knows anything about Manson's music, he does not promote anything like that at all. If you know his lyrics at all, couldn't be further from what Manson's about. But yeah, so of course Moore touches base with him, and Manson, like I said, he just steals the show because Michael Moore says, well, what would you say to the kids of Columbine if you had a chance to speak to them? And Manson says, I wouldn't say anything. I just listened to them because that's the one thing nobody did. And there it is. Because had Eric Harris and Dilly Klebold had somebody listening to them and discussing their concerns and they're sort of like feeling like social outcasts the way they were, and maybe the tragedy could have been averted, you know? Because in a way, Columbine sort of kicked off a whole new era of violence, Western-styled, American-styled violence. Like school shootings became like the in thing after that. I remember, oh my God, what was the website that I always used to go to back then? I can't remember if it was like the Style Project or some shit. It might have been the Style Project. And they had a bunch of like school shooting flash games up. Macromedia Flash, because that was like the big news at the time. Flash games were it. And there was a bunch of school shooting games. And they were well done and they were fun to play. But that, like I said, it sort of kicked off this new like maniacal attitude towards hurting each other. Like it almost like school shootings, I don't know, they entered like the pop culture like consciousness, and it's like everybody, good and bad, got their hands on it. And like I said, some people were making sort of tasteless yet well-made flash games, and other people were attempting to address the social issues that caused this, bullying and whatnot. It just seemed like everybody wanted to get in on the craze that was Columbine, not so much because they necessarily cared about the victims or anything. They just wanted to sort of boost their opinions, and they wanted to sort of like climb up on a soapbox and say, oh no, I've got the answers because I am so much better than the rest of you. And it seems like nobody was really attempting to find a solution to the problem, when I think the solution might have been as simply, like Manson said, just to listen to the kids that are being sort of shoved aside, because those are the ones that are suffering the worst because they're being bullied and ignored, and they're not getting the help that they need. And if they do have access to weapons, unfortunately, from time to time, they're going to do something awful with them. And I remember, too, when Columbine jumped off, when that happened on April 20th and the days following, Dylan and Eric and Dylan were being referred to as the trench coat mafia by the media. And then they interviewed a classmate or somebody that I don't know if they knew them, but the kid that they interviewed, it was a guy. He said, like, they were like, so the trench coat mafia are around the school, trying to imply that the trench coat mafia were some kind of high school gang. And they were holding the other kids at Columbine hostage because Eric and Dylan and I imagine anybody else in this little mafia of theirs were ruling the school with an iron fist. But the kid that they were interviewing was like, whoa, 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 stop that. No, 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 trenchcoat mafia, that wasn't what they called them. That's what we called them. It's like everybody, like they were nerds. Like we cut them up all the time. You're like, oh, here comes the trenchcoat mafia. People would throw shit at them and stuff. And then that was it. The trenchcoat mafia was wiped clean from the media cycle, and we didn't hear about it anymore. We heard about it in the ironic sense and the more like I said, in the bullying sense, where we would hear that they were referred to as the trenchcoat mafia in order to further isolate them socially. But no more was CNN pushing the narrative that Eric and Dylan had this trenchcoat mafia group that were going around and strong-arming the good kids at Columbine, which they were attempting to do initially with the news reports once they started. I thought that was amazing too, because it really sort of showed just, oh fuck, God, I hate the access media. I just can't stand them, especially after COVID. But yeah, I mean, I loved too how he called the movie Bowling for Columbine, because if everybody was going to blame Marilyn Manson for the massacre, wasn't it just as likely that you could blame bowling for the massacre? Because Eric and Dylan were in an elective bowling class that started at 6 a.m., by the way. 6 a.m. I don't care how much fun bowling is. Nobody wants to be at a bowling alley at 6 a.m. And so he says, well, if they bowled before they went and actually committed the murders, isn't it more likely that bowling was the reason that they chose to kill everybody? Not Marilyn Manson. Nobody was really sure, it didn't seem at least like they weren't listening to his music just before they committed the atrocities that they committed. No, they were bowling that morning. So maybe bowling was the cause for it, because again, Moore was taking the very definite stance that Marilyn Manson had absolutely nothing to do with the Columbine massacre. Yeah, this movie is really fun. I like how at one point he goes to a bank, and when you open a bank account at this bank, you get a rifle, which is, oh my God, that is so American. I like how he talks to the people at Lockheed Martin, who make all of America's missiles, of course. What else did I really like about this movie? I did like how, at first Michael Moore comes off, look, what I like about Michael Moore is that on the surface, he seems really likable and really humble. And he seems like he's really invested in whatever it is he's discussing. But I don't know. Once you watch the movie a few times, like at the end, when he finally gets to meet Charlton Heston, who is, of course, the head of the NRA, and whenever there's a school shooting or a shooting of any sort of significance, the NRA shows up to say, how, whoa, 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 just because this happened with a firearm, that doesn't mean that the rest of the responsible gun owners in America behave this way, blah, blah, blah. And it is a little in poor taste because, literally, like, the victims haven't even been buried yet. And there's Charlton Heston and the NRA showing up going, don't blame guns. Don't blame guns. Yeah, your kid's dead 30 seconds ago. Yeah, well, I'm telling you not to blame guns. And it's like, okay, fair enough. I understand that there's a lot of responsible gun owners who would never behave that way. But it isn't even really the issue. The issue is bullying and how the education system, or at least at this point, which, well, let's be honest, as of right now, wherever we are in 2024, nobody gives a fuck about kids getting bullied. Nobody does. I'm sure teachers are just happy that it's gone cyber so they don't have to deal with it in school anymore. It's like we like to pretend that we're here to help people and we're going to help the kids get through it, but nobody really gives a fuck. No one cares at all. Bullying has always been around, and I think, unfortunately, bullying is always going to be around. Just an unfortunate fact of life. But yeah, this movie is really cool. They even talk to, Christ, I can't remember now if they talked to Trey or Matt. I think they talked to Trey, no wait, Matt, from South Park. Trey Parker and Matt Stone, they talked to one of them. And I thought that was fun too. But then the thing I didn't like about that was Moore frames it like, well, these two guys who started South Park, they grew up in Colorado, and instead of committing a massacre, they created a great TV show everybody likes by way of creating South Park. And it's like, see, there he's bashing Eric and Dylan, like saying that, like, on one hand, one minute they were bullied into this, but then on the flip side of that coin, oh, they should have just taken up drawing and just ignored all the bullying, like, Trey Parker and Matt Stone did, because they were outcasts too. And that's what I really didn't like about this, was just that Michael Moore, he just seems to just say whatever he needs to justify the narrative of the minute. Like, fucking from minute to minute, his narrative could change in his own movie. And so it's like, on one hand, it's like, was it bullying? Was it bowling? Was it Manson? Or was it because they were just two assholes who never bothered to learn how to draw? And I'm like, really, Michael Moore? Really? Eric and Dylan did what they did because they were tired of being picked on. And I am in no way advocating for that type of behavior, but fuck, you just can't use violence to solve your problems. But if you have access to them and you're beaten down day after day, it's anybody's guess if you're ever going to use them, right? I mean, some people will, some people won't. And it's too bad, because Columbine, like I said, it sort of started off a whole new era. And I just really, it's almost like school shootings became cool after that, because it felt like there was a school shooting every week or so. And it was like the media was all over it. Like in the movie, too, in Bowling for Columbine, kids were getting suspended left, right, and center. One little kid pointed a chicken finger that was loosely shaped like a gun at a teacher, and he got suspended. The kid was like 6, you know? And so the movie's cool, but the movie's flawed, and Michael Moore does definitely get on my nerves. But that's it. I'm leaving it there. So thank you so much for hanging out with me for way too long. This is almost 12 minutes this time. Well, I discussed the 2002 documentary Bowling for Columbine. Like always, if you like this review or you like this movie, don't forget to go and do something nice for somebody. But most importantly, like always, never forget that the world is a fucking way better place because you are in it. I'm getting out of here. Have a good night.